We begin tonight with a brewing battle in Washington over how the government is going to spend your money. On Sunday, congressional leaders reached a bipartisan deal on a $1 trillion budget to fund the government through the end of September. But with no money for a border wall and more cash for Planned Parenthood and sanctuary cities, some conservatives expressed dismay.
Trump got rolled. The Republicans got rolled. They ended up with nothing, really. It's sort of embarrassing.
No reason to keep electing Republicans if this is what we're going to get with this budget deal, which continually pays for sanctuary cities, funds Obamacare, funds the EPA, gives money, Planned Parenthood, no money for the wall.
President Trump pushed back and framed the deal as a victory for Americans.
We have more money now for the border than we've gotten in 10 years. The Democrats didn't tell you that. They forgot. In their notes, they forgot to tell you that. With enough money to make a down payment on the border wall. After years of partisan bickering and gridlock, this bill is a clear win for the American people.
And at the White House press briefing today, Trump Budget Director Mick Mulvaney slammed Democrats for boasting about the budget and hinted that future negotiations won't go so well.
The Dems have been trying to claim victory on this, which I think is a very strange way to look at a bipartisan discussion. If you're in a bipartisan meeting, I think it's very unusual for one group to walk out and start spiking the football and say, hey, we won, we killed the other guys, and it certainly doesn't bode very well for future discussions.
What does it all mean? Well, to make sense of all of this, Mike Emanuel joins us now with the very latest from Capitol Hill. All right, so how do you call it today, winners and losers?
Well, Kimberly, I think in a $1 trillion spending package, there are things for Republicans to celebrate, such as increasing defense spending, $15 billion more than what was going to be in there. So $21 billion for defense spending, something the president ran on. Also $1.5 billion for border security, something that he has worked hard to make happen. And then there are things the Democrats can celebrate, such as saving the funding for the EPA, something that they wanted to make sure was in there, boosting funding for the National Institutes of Health. And so bottom line, in a $1 trillion plus funding package, there's something for everyone to say they like, something for everyone to say they hate. And so that's the nature of compromise here on Capitol Hill.
Oh, muy interesante. Crowd-pleasing budget. Dana Perino, you have a question?
Yes. Welcome to the 5 in prime time, Mike Emanuel. I have a question just about the communications of it, because it seems to me that the Democrats might have actually been one-upping the White House by getting out there on Sunday so that Monday morning the story that everybody read was that the Democrats won and the White House got rolled. So that lasted an entire day. And then you had today, the White House put out Mick Mulvaney at the White House, very effective, but a little bit too late.
Yeah, Dana, no question about that. When we got first indications that there was a deal Sunday night, we were instantly hearing from Democratic communicators about what they loved about the deal. And so it looked like, wow, a bunch of victories on paper. And we were asking their Republican counterparts, what are the victories? And they said, oh, we're still working out the text and that sort of thing. And so they may have been a little slow to get out there in terms of saying what they loved about this package. But you know, clearly the White House, and you would know this better than anybody, the White House was clearly worried about, you know, headlines saying Republicans cannot govern, Trump makes rookie mistake, that sort of thing. And so they signaled very early on they wanted nothing to do with a government shutdown. And to get these government funding deals through the House, you need some Democratic help, because some of the conservative members always vote no on these spending packages. And in the Senate, you need 60 votes. You've got 52 Republicans, and some of the conservatives may not like that. And so it was very clear they had to sit at the table with the Democrats and work this out. And when it was all said and done, the Democrats were very quick to say what they loved about this deal, Dana.
All right, Mike, we'll take it away with Bob Becker.
Mike, first of all, let me say that anybody who suggests that we're not impartial journalists, you particularly, to be able to say that both sides got something out of this package, when in fact Trump got rolled so bad, it was unbelievable. But I got it. You did it exactly right. But I don't have to do it that way. Trump gets no money for his wall. He gets no money to stop the sanctuary cities. I can go on and on and on. But the guy got hammered. And then he has to go, I give Trump this, to stand up and say, this is a victory for the American people, and I was responsible for bringing these people across the aisle. I mean, who else would do that but a developer from New York?
So, Bob, this is a question and answer.
I'm answering Mike, here's my question. Is there going to be, do the Republicans think they've had enough votes to try to put a repeal of Obamacare on this bill?
Oh, switching topics on me, Bob. That's pretty quick on your feet.
Thank you.
Healthcare, they're working it. You know, there's 20-plus or so Republicans who say they are no on the House Republican healthcare repeal and replace effort at this point. That's dangerously close to failure. Obviously, we've seen Vice President Mike Pence up here a whole lot over the last 24 to 36 hours or so. He's been up here a lot in recent weeks trying to convince his former colleagues he used to serve in the House of Representatives years ago that to get on board with this, that this was a critical first step. The bill could be improved in the Senate, but they need to get out of the House. And so there's been a whole lot of pressure to try to get a vote by Thursday, but the House Republican leadership saying they're not going to do it until they know they have the votes. They don't want another failure headline. And so, bottom line, they are pushing and pushing and pushing. But at this point, it may be too soon to say exactly what the play will be on Thursday, Bob.
All right, Jesse.
Hey, Mike. So the Congress just got back from a 2-week vacation. And they haven't cut spending. They haven't cut taxes. They haven't repealed and replaced Obamacare. And now they have a $1 trillion spending bill that doesn't fund the wall. And now they're going to go on vacation at the end of the week. When does it reach the level where the White House says, listen, you guys need to stop at the vacations and stay in Washington and start doing something for the American people? Because enough is enough. Have we reached that level yet from the White House, yes or no?
Jesse, I asked a bunch of members about that today here on Capitol Hill. The Senate will be here next week, but the House is going home, going to be gone for another recess. I asked, why are you doing that after you just had 2 weeks out? And I was told, well, you know, they have graduations back home. They can make appearances,
okay. Mother's
Day weekend, and et cetera, so they can make the rounds. But they may get an earful if they go home. And I asked, well, what if the president doesn't get a vote on health care before lawmakers leave? Are you expecting to get an earful? And they seem to be bracing themselves that perhaps the president might lose his cool with them.
He might
if they were
lose
to
his
leave
cool.
town.
Okay.
Interesting. All right. Yes. No more vacations. Greg.
I have to disagree with you, Jesse. The more vacations, the better. the more that politicians stay out of D.C. and are mowing the lawns and playing golf.
Usually, but you want to keep taxes low and you want to get rid of Obamacare, so they need to do that, then go on vacation.
No, just get them all out as long as possible. Look, I think the only people who got rolled are the people who believed that President Trump was a small government conservative. He's not. He ran on a pro-American promise, which could go either way. If you spend on infrastructure, that's pro-American. But if you cut, then you help build the economy. So he can't lose either way. This is why for Rush Limbaugh to be upset about this seems a little rich, because anybody saw this coming. Also, Republicans keep falling for this trick. I call it the most popular teacher syndrome. What's the most popular teacher? The teacher that doesn't act like the other teachers. Right. So if you're a Republican in D.C., the quickest way to become popular is to act like a Democrat.
Okay.
The moment you bite into that forbidden fruit of spending, all of a sudden you have new friends, and it feels really good, and you made a deal, and everybody likes you. And I think that's probably the biggest hurdle for a conservative or a Republican in D.C. is how you can end up being seduced by money.
Well,
we'll be right back.
It happens, but I think, well, there he is. Thank
God.
No question. We revived Mike Emanuel. We brought him back to life. Did you have another quick question, Bob, or comment?
On the, going back to the health thing, the Republicans they can't lose 22 votes. Is that the number? 21 have said they won't be for it. And isn't it 22 or 23 that they need to have against them, and then they're playing on thin ice here, right?
They need to get to 216. They can lose 22 from latest math count. And so, yeah, they're right about there. And obviously the pressure is on a lot of these lawmakers that have been saying that they're undecided at this point to see whether they're yes or no. And we'll see if they get called out if they're no, and if they leave town without doing anything about it, Bob.
You know, Trump could call them back. If the president could do that and should do that, I suppose.
Yeah, and there have been some people floating the idea about whether they should blow up recess and stay here and have them basically sit here until they vote on something. But there are some who say the longer you keep them here, the more votes you may lose, and just make it a bigger disaster after all.
All right.
Stop calling it recess.
On behalf of a grateful 5, we thank you. Mike
Thanks for
Emanuel,
having me.
this is how we do it here. It's a little, nutty. Okay, Dana. So what do you think of this? Should President Trump have put more pressure or had his people, put more pressure to get something done that would have satisfied everybody? Or was
I don't think it was possible this time around. I think that I think we said it in a commercial break yesterday, but this is really Obama's last budget, and whoever the president is that takes over that first year, you usually have to just sort of deal with that. And I think that the White House was smart to say, okay, well, September is where we're going to make our stand, and that is where we're going to have to. And they kind of need that time. It's going to come around quickly. Summers go by quickly, go by very fast, and so we could end up at this point again in September. The stakes will be higher, but I think that that's okay. Then the president will have more of his team in place. But I do think that just for this one little blip that they've had this week, that the Democrats were like, oh, if we get out on Sunday night, we'll make all the Monday morning papers. And Chuck Schumer used to do this. He was great at it and caught everybody flat-footed on Monday mornings because like, oh, shoot, you should have been working on the Sunday.
Why do people always say flat-footed as though it's a bad thing?
Do you have flat feet?
Yes. I do, and I actually, it's a microaggression.
Greg, I'm sure everybody likes to hear
well,
that.
Everything microaggression.
I think these budget issues are always an away game for Republicans.
Right.
It's always the Democrats' turf whenever you come on there. Spending is the Democrats' wheelhouse.
Right.
Economic growth is the Republican wheelhouse.
Yep.
Government growth is the Democrats' wheelhouse. So it's always a war where you end up losing less. You never win.
Yes,
you just
but you
lose
know what?
less.
But to further on your point, President Trump tried to make come back on that today and say, listen, you're right. This has been their field advantage, home team advantage. Guess what? Then if you want to produce a different outcome, then elect more Republicans and put them in and get to 60 so that we can actually get something done.
Let's be clear about this. It wasn't that he should have known this bill was already worked out before there was an election.
Right.
I mean, that's what happens. You send a bill up, and the Democrats and Republican leadership get together, cut deals, and they leave enough to buy certain votes off, which they did in this bill. Why Trump didn't understand that is one thing, I suppose, but why he then takes credit for this being one of the greatest bills.
Because he's a real estate developer from New York.
That's right. That's right. And that $10 million condo is perfect.
So if you go through this and this thing gets passed, and then you have summer to advance tax relief and repeal and replace for Obamacare, he's got momentum going into the next budget showdown, and then he can put a little more pressure on these Democrats and maybe squeeze something out of them.
What's the play, Dana?
Once he passes tax relief and repeals Obamacare.
I think that it'll be tough for them to get that done by September.
It's a tight time frame.
But the interesting thing is that there could be, and we're going to talk about this next about Democrats or coming up in the C block, about what is their advantage or incentive in order to work with President Trump on anything.
None.
Right now, they pay no political price back home. And one of the things that they did in this budget is they wrote little riders, for example, on things like if you were from a state that had legalized marijuana. There's a rider in there that says that the Justice Department can't change the way that they alter it. So they were trying to put the handcuffs on some of the policy proposals that might be coming forward from a Republican administration. And I think it'll be very interesting to see in the next 6 weeks we'll know if the Democrats are willing to play ball at all.
The only incentive they have is at the next midterms in the Senate, the Democrats are defending 25 seats, and 10 of those are Trump states.
Right.
So there is a little incentive.
Put a little squeeze play on
But in the House, there's not. That's the problem.
But the other incentive, too, is I don't know why. Trump's like me in college. He's open to everything. I mean, there should be there should be a white line down the front of him because he's so middle of the road. He grows the budget. He cuts regulations. He boosts drilling. He bombs here and there. But he's right now he is a centrist. There's nothing to be alarmed about.
He's not an ideologue.
No, he's not an ideologue. So you can get something out of him.
Don't compare him to you. I mean, you were
he
stoned.
loves himself.
You were stoned when
he loves himself. So he's giving the president a compliment.
I'm going to give Trump a compliment on this. I will say this. The guy throws out ideas, whether you like them or not, that I think are probably pretty good. The gas tax was a good example.
Bad idea. See, now this is what happens.
Right.
Terrible idea, but you like it.
I like it. That's right. I'm saying, but
it's punishing his voters.
But nobody in the world, no politician would raise the gas tax, and Trump at least had the courage to step forward because it's true.
Well,
with a gas tax, you get a lot of money.
No, but he did.
Yes, it is true, but it's our money.
But then when he caves, it looks like he's doing a good thing.
And they caved within an hour.
Well,
I know. Maybe he should have caved in September.
You have to what Newt Gingrich's book, right?
Also,
Understanding Trump, because this is what he does. It's all laying the groundwork for the deal that comes down the road.
Why are they doing the gas tax now? Because gas is low, so you can sneak it in. If something is good, you don't sneak it in.
All right, listen, you. Did you have a 5-hour energy drink?
No,
Ahead.
I need the gas tax.